After Chloe, we will hear from Andrew Douglas, who is the founder and chief executive from Parallel Lifestyle, a disability lifestyle brand operating as a social enterprise. Established in 2015, Parallel aims to support disabled individuals in living life to the fullest within mainstream society. The organisation's flagship events, such as Parallel London and Parallel Windsor, are award-winning celebrations that promote inclusivity and accessibility in physical activity and beyond. Andrew's initiatives have been instrumental in challenging societal perceptions of disability and promoting a more inclusive culture. And last, but by no means least, we will hear from Jeanette Chippington, OBE Paralympic champion and trailblazer in disability sport, with an extraordinary career spanning over 3 decades. Jeanette first made her mark as a swimmer, competing in 5 Paralympic Games and winning multiple medals before transitioning to para-canoeing, where she continued her dominance on the international stage. At the Rio 2016 Paralympics, she made history by winning Britain's first ever para-canoe gold medal, followed by a bronze at Tokyo 2020 and making her 8th Paralympic appearance at the Paris 2024 Games. So I'm very much looking forward to this Q&A with Jeanette, and thank you to all our speakers for your time today. So without further ado, I'll move on to a very brief introduction to Get Berkshire Active. So for those that haven't come across us before, we're the Active Partnership for Berkshire, one of 43 nationally. So if you go to another county, you'll find an equivalent to us. We know that movement is the foundation of good health, well-being and thriving sustainable communities. However, there are many inequalities that exist and make it much harder for some people to access or take part in physical activity. So we work with a range of partner organisations to help create the conditions to support people to be more active. It's great to see some familiar names and faces on the call today, but if this is your first interaction you've had with us, welcome, and we look forward to remaining connected with you in the future. So I'd like to pass over to Chloe now from the Activity Alliance. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kathy. It's great to be here today. So thanks everybody for coming along. As Kathy said, I'm going to kind of give you a little bit of an intro first of all as to who we are, Activity Alliance, what we can offer, and hopefully give you some tools, resources that you might be able to go away and use away from here as well. So if I can have the next slide, if that's all right. So at Activity Alliance, we really want to focus on promoting inclusion and accessibility across sport and physical activity. We want to make sure that gap, that inactivity gap is really closed. So we really want to see a future where all disabled people feel that they belong in sports and activities. And to do this, we look
on
at
a disability call. Do you want to listen to it or not?
James,
well, it's about Activity Alliance and various different.
If people could mute themselves, that would be great. Sorry, Chloe.
Okay, that's all right.
That's all right.
So we aim to do this through trying to improve more opportunities to be active, increasing their accessibility. We want to really empower disabled people to get involved in sports and activities in a way that's right for them. And the way we sort of do that is around working with disabled people and a much wider alliance of different organisations and partners, so that we can really sort of build this change. We kind of have a number of different areas that we cover across Activity Alliance. So we have a research and insight team that conduct different bits of research around the barriers, the facilitators for disabled people, can also provide some of that data around sort of participation rates and things as well. We offer training and education, so some of that may be online, some of it may be more face-to-face, and I'll kind of run through some of those options a little bit later. We have a partnerships team, which is where I sit, and kind of there to work with different sports bodies, with local authorities, with different charities, so that we can really promote inclusivity. And sort of it may be sort of looking at what's the best option for them. And we have a campaigns and advocacy group as well that kind of look at running different campaigns, raising awareness, and sort of how they can influence wider policy change as well. Can I get the next slide, please, guys? So in terms of defining disability, I'm not going to read all this out from the screen. You guys can see it there. But it's about impairments or health problems that limit or restrict activities. The really key things here is that it should be about being a long-standing limiting disability or illness. So it is about anything that is kind of experienced over a long period of time, over 12 plus months. At Activity Alliance as well, you will hear us using the phrase disabled people rather than person with disability. That's because we follow the social model of disability, which basically sort of says that the disabled person is disabled by society rather than by their sort of medical rather than sort of by the medical conditions they have. Awesome. Can we go on to the next slide? So some quick stats for you. About 24% of people in the UK have an impairment or health conditions. That works out about 16 million people. And about 75% of those people have more than one impairment. And we find that as the number of impairments increases, the inactivity increases even more as well. So 48% with 3 or more impairments are more physically inactive than those with just one impairment. So for example, if somebody only had one impairment, they're a lot more likely to be able to access physical activity. Fab, can we get the next slide? Awesome. So within Activity Alliance, we do what's called an annual disability and activity survey. And it looks at these 5 key areas. So participation and experience, the legacy of COVID-19, outdoor spaces, active travel, mental well-being and loneliness, and representation and belonging. And this, I suppose, looks more at the why of that inactivity. So we just said about the fact that disabled people are more likely to be inactive, that actually this now looks more at the why. So 43% of disabled people feel that they have the chance to be active in the way that they want. So that's less than half people. When you compare that to non-disabled people, we're looking at 69%. So there's a really big disparity there. So already, if we're looking at maybe the why people aren't as active, having those opportunities and those accessible opportunities is a really key factor. About 59% are concerned, that rely on their benefits and financial support to be able to access sport and physical activity. From those 59%, 38% of those are concerned that if they were to be more active, that it would impact their benefits and their financial support. So again, something else that potentially blocks people and prevents them from trying to be more active. Disabled people are more likely to say they prefer being in outdoor spaces, but less than half of disabled people feel that they can easily physically access those outdoor spaces because they're not as accessible for them. And disabled people are more than likely to report less likely to report high satisfaction with their life. So their happiness, their feelings of worthwhileness are a lot less than non-disabled people. And they're also less likely to see people that represent them, that look like them, whether that is taking part, whether that's volunteering, whether that's working in sport. Their representation is a lot less. So there isn't necessarily one reason that perhaps stops or is a barrier to people taking part in physical activity. There's multiple different reasons. Fab, can we go on to the next slide, if that's all right? For us, it's really important that we treat people as individuals. And as I said, there's multiple different reasons, and that may be different for different people. So I'm going to just show you a quick video, which is around our 10 principles, which hopefully will give you a little bit of an idea as to sort of some of the things that you might want to do in your spaces. I know we've got sort of quite a wide range of sort of roles and things on the call today. Hopefully there'll be something in here that you can kind of take away from it. Are we all right to press play on the video?
Talk to me. 10 principles.
For millions of people up and down the country, being active plays an important role in us staying fit and healthy. But a lot of disabled people told us that the activities are not always right for them. So with their support, we've developed 10 principles. These can help sport providers to deliver more appealing and inclusive opportunities for disabled people. So my friend Gordon can go from here to here. Principle 1, my channels. Like most people, I use social media and keep an eye on local groups. And I always flick to the local paper. So use the communication channels I pay attention to and trust to promote your event. Principle 2, my locality. Driving halfway across town or sitting on a bus for an hour can be a big barrier for some disabled people. The closer your event is to me, in a venue I know, the more likely I am to attend. Principle 3, me, not my impairment. Disability is often used as a catch-all phrase, but some people do not identify with the term and not consider themselves to be disabled. So to reach more people, choose your words carefully in your promotions. Principle 4, my values. Stay healthy, being independent, and enjoying time with my friends are just some of the things I value in life. Linking your activities to things that motivate me will be more likely to get involved. Principle 5, my life story. As I get older, my values and the things I enjoy changes, but I still want to stay active. Mix it up and try something new to keep me interested. No running! Principle 6, reassure me. Trying a new activity can be daunting to some people. Videos, virtual tours and open days are some of the ways you can reassure disabled people that opportunities are right for them. Should we go another game? Yeah. Principle 7, include me. If I've made the effort to come along, I don't want to feel sidelined. Providers should make sure that people of all ability levels feel included in sessions. Nice one. Next catch wins. Principle 8, listen to me.
Right, today Chris is going to introduce a new exercise, dumbbell shoulder press to keep your back straight, stomach tight.
Listen to me. I feel more confident about taking part when I've had the opportunity to discuss my needs or concerns. So be approachable and offer me a time or place to talk privately.
Right, here we go. Chris, can you give me 10?
10. Exhausted. Principle 9, welcome me. You only get one chance at a first impression. A bad experience is hard to forget. So help me enjoy my time and you'll probably see me again.
As we come to the next stretch, we're going to welcome Chris. Hi, Chris.
Principle 10, show me. Nothing beats first-hand experience, so engage with disabled people already taking part in your activity to help them spread the word and promote it. These 10 principles are just the beginning, and you're probably doing some of these already. By embedding these into your work, disabled people will have access to more appealing and inclusive opportunities.
Find out more about the 10 principles, visit www.activityalliance.org.uk.
Thanks, guys. Are you right to just click on to the next one? Perfect. So our 10 principles, I suppose, underpins a lot of the resources, a lot of the support that we have, and a lot of those go into a lot more detail. So we have our engagement resources all up on our website. You can access them. There's a really, really wide range. So I know, as I said, we've got a lot of people in here from different areas. We've got people from leisure. We've got people in sports clubs. We've got a real mix, and there are different engagement resources for sort of different areas. So we have a whole section for leisure. We have examples of how you might adapt your session as you go along. Or right to just jump backwards, guys. I think it's just jumped on a few slides. One more back, if that's all right.
Sorry, Chloe.
My mouse is... No, that's all right. Excellent. So with the engagement resources, it's a really good space to kind of go in and kind of look through. So all of those, if you just go onto our website, there's a whole bank of resources on there. Some of it will have research and statistics on there if that's what you want. Some of it is more about really practical examples and some sharing best practice. We run what's called a Get Out, Get Active program as well. And there's some really good bits of learning from there and some really good examples of what people have done that you can take and use in your own areas. Fab, next slide for me. a few of those 10 principles were around communication, and that might be communication internally. It might be in communication externally. We've got a number of different inclusive communication resources. So there's some written resources, there's some online training on there that are all really, really good to kind of have a little look through, because you can make your space, your club, your area as accessible as you want. If you're not shouting about it in the right way, you may still struggle to kind of engage people and get people in. So really the communication for me is probably one of the biggest things, is actually how can you make sure that you're putting everything across in the right way, so that people can access and understand what is on offer. Excellent. Next one. We have a number of different safeguarding resources as well. So the kind of principles for children and adults at risk are very similar for disabled and non-disabled people. And we've got a couple of resources on there. We've also got some links to sort of some of the other resources, so your NSPCC, your Childline. Sorry, next slide, that's all right. And then but for us, it's really, really important to make sure that you have a good understanding of that safeguarding. And actually, if it is an area you need a bit more support on, it's something we can look at. There are, sort of, I suppose, a few reasons why disabled people may not sort of raise any concerns that they have. And so it's really important that the right things are put in place to allow them to do that, whether that is because they already feel isolated and don't have the contacts, whether that's because they've not been taken seriously in the past, or whether it's because they maybe don't have the speech or language to be able to articulate what's happened. It's really important that we make sure we cover people. So again, there's some of those resources on there for you. And there's a couple of links on the presentation. I'm not sure, Kathy, whether you guys are sharing the presentation after. I think you said you were.
Yeah, we will be sharing everything. Yeah.
Perfect. So you'll have these links on here as well. Excellent. Next slide for me, please. And then the kind of final bit really is around our learning hub. So we have a number of different workshops, recordings on there. So we have our inclusive activity program, which is kind of specifically for coaches, people actually out delivering activities, and how you might adapt and adjust activities for different impairments. We have our communications e-learning on there as well. We have things on there for customer service, which is more targeted towards the leisure industry, but can be used wider. We have ones on there for education. So there's a really wide range of different things you can access. So the link is on there if you want to be able to access those and go on those, or if you just want to go straight to our website, you can access it through there as well. Fab. And then the last slide. Awesome. So, and then the last bit really for me is just, if you have got any other questions, you want any more support, you're not sure about something, more than happy for you to get in touch with me. We, as said, our role as partnership advisors is there to work with different organisations to be able to see how we can support you to be more inclusive, more accessible in the activities you're doing. So please reach out if you want to. As I said, I'm more than happy to have a conversation as well. I think that's it. Thank you, Kathy.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chloe. Thank you. If people do have a question, could I ask you either kind of hold it just to check we've got time at the end, because we've got quite a lot to get through, or put it in the chat if it's something directly for Chloe. And there is just an interactive Slido opportunity now, kind of linking on from Chloe. So thank you for that, Chloe. Really useful. I mentioned at the beginning, I know some people joined after. If you haven't used Slido before, if you have your phone handy, or you can put it into your computer web browser and go to slido.com, or open up your camera and use that QR code, it should take you to this specific question. So if you go in through your browser, you'll need to put that code #2812821. And we're just asking really everyone, this will come up as a word cloud. I can see people are coming in. What is one barrier you've helped remove to make activity more inclusive? I can see people are signing in. So if you can't get in for any reason, please just use the chat function. But hopefully I can see more and more people logging in. So one barrier you've helped remove to make activity more inclusive, and this should come up as a word cloud. Oh, brilliant. Lots coming in there. Competition regulations, advanced booking and payment, being able to be active at home. These are great. Language change and promotion, fantastic. Disability to inclusive. There's quite a few people saying about being able to be active at home. Specific equipment, accessibility.
Sorry, can I just jump in? I'm unable to get in, I'm afraid.
Oh, okay. Could you put anything in the chat, or just feel free to, if there's anything you want to share now?
Okay. I've done quite a bit around creating resources, environment, looking at changing the environment, quite a lot of the stuff that a lot of people are putting up already. I've done that sort of stuff as well.
Brilliant. Thank you for sharing that. Thank you. So changing the environment. Yeah, a few people have said that. Addressing rules that have traditionally governed the sport. That's fantastic. Some of that kind of longer term system change is brilliant. Cost being a big one. Fantastic. Lots of great ideas there and things that you've done. So that's really good. I don't know if you wanted to jump in at all, Chloe.
Yeah, I suppose a couple that kind of stand out to me. I think the language change one is a really important one. And it's something that, before they even get to the session, is how are you engaging with somebody and making it more relevant for them and what they, I suppose, relate to a little bit more. So, yeah, I really kind of like that language one. I think, there's some really good ones in there around, providing one-to-one volunteers. I know that's not always possible, but for some people, that is such an important thing as well. I think you've already pulled out about being active at home, and they're showing really, really sort of quite prominently around the environment, the cost, and actually sometimes not having to travel is a really big thing. So I think those three that are really showing up quite big, I think are probably showing sort of quite large for a reason. So yeah, but I mean, there's loads of some really fantastic ideas coming in there. Is this going to be able to be shared with people afterwards as well, for people to be able to have a little look through? Perfect,
yeah,
that'll be brilliant, because there are some great ideas on there, guys. So yeah, definitely have a little look through.
Brilliant, thank you. I will move on now, but thank you everyone for contributing towards that. That was great, thank you. So I'd like to hand over to Andrew Douglas now, the CEO and co-founder of Parallel Lifestyle. Thank you, Andrew.
Thanks very much, Kathy, and great, Chloe, great presentation. Morning, everyone. It's really nice to see everybody, and particularly some people I know. So Jit, Chin, Ella, lovely to see you. So what I'm going to do for the next 15 minutes or so is just talk about, try and draw on a theme of breaking barriers through some of our work that we are doing at Parallel. Next slide, please. As Kathy highlighted in her introduction, Parallel is a disability lifestyle brand with social purpose, but we run this as a social enterprise. So really everything that we do is bedded in a clear social aim. And that is for us to support deaf, disabled and neurodivergent communities to be free to live life to the full in mainstream society. And the way in which we try and endeavour to do that in everything we do is to be creative, innovative, and in doing that, hopefully be a positive catalyst for some change in thinking, some change in attitudes, and really to try and break some barriers. And so in order to bring this to life, to support our social mission, we stage a number of events and campaigns throughout the course of the year. Next slide, please, Kathy. Our largest event at this stage that some of you may well know is Parallel Windsor. We're now in our third year in our relatively new home, proud to call our new home, which is Windsor Great Park. And our event, we've very pleased to say that we've now established a long-term tenancy with great thanks to the Crown Estate and fantastic support by Royal Borough of Windsor and Maidenhead as well. So we can really plan and put some roots down and plan with a degree of confidence. Our event, we now know, will always be on the first Sunday in July. So this year, we'll be there on Sunday, the 6th of July, 11 a.m. till 5 p.m, where we'll be basically welcoming in the region between 4,500 families, 4,500 people from all over the UK, mainly made up from families with a lived experience of disability. And just in a short time we've been here, I'm really pleased to say as well, we've now made it onto Visit Britain's list of annual events that they list on their website. So we're kind of rubbing shoulders these days with the likes of Glastonbury and Notting Hill Carnival and Pride in London. But more importantly, it's really fantastic that an event that champions disability lifestyle and inclusion has really been recognised as an annual event, which can be positioned in that way, and hopefully more can follow suit as well. So that's our flagship event, Parallel Windsor. Next slide, please, Kathy. And in the guise of us being a social enterprise, we also have some clear event aims. I'm probably going to draw on probably the first one more so in this morning's presentation, but we have 3 event aims. And the first one is to encourage people of all ages, health conditions and abilities to challenge themselves and get active. Our second aim is to create a unique environment for charitable fundraising and togetherness. So we have a real solid aim to bring communities together, bring families together in an environment that's safe, welcoming and accessible. And probably our most important aim for one day is to create a lens into what an inclusive and accessible society should look and feel like to influence positive change. I think we all probably share the belief that, you know, that should be every day. So we place a lot of emphasis and a lot of onus on amplification of our messaging, you know, the way in which we create our content, and to really create stories that can really help to change policy making and other societal barriers to make our world and indeed our society a far more accessible and inclusive place to live, work and play as well. So there are event aims. Next slide, please. And the format of our event combines a festival. We call it our Festival of Inclusivity, with a whole range of challenge events for everybody, which I'll dig into a little bit more in a moment. Next slide, please, Sathy. So just briefly, our festival, just like any other festival, has a whole range of different activities, activations and experiences. You can see there on the list, we've got animals, we have arts and craft, we have community, we have live music, we have family entertainment, and within that it has drama, comedy, theatre, and then we have a whole raft of programmes around wellbeing and dance as well. In the context of sport, our festival plays a really, really important role as well, where we particularly highlight inclusive sport and also sensory sport as well. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about sensory sport. And what we endeavour to do with our festival is to work with our festival partners who come and showcase their sports or their activities, you know, to enable people to have a go, to learn more, and try a few things out, and that can obviously lead to a number of different pathways, you know, so which we will signpost, you know, for all of our Parallel festival goers who maybe are trying a sport for the first time, really enjoy it. So again, working with our partners in terms of how we can signpost them to do more, whichever part of the UK in which they live. And you know, I'm really pleased and proud to say that you know, we have, you know, some fantastic stories where, you know, whether, you know, some of our festival goers and some of our people that have tried sports are now you know, part of a sporting club, you know, close to home, you know, at a grassroots level, having fun, getting active, making new friends and contacts, you know, all of the benefits that we all know and recognise come through the joy of being able to play sport without any limits and without any barriers. And in certain regards as well, we've had a few people as well that have gravitated towards a more elite pathway as well. So we've had fantastic examples with regards to wheelchair rugby, wheelchair basketball, and shooting as well, where we've had a few people that have come, tried something for the first time, found that they've actually quite good at it and really enjoy it, which has led to a whole new world of adventure, which has really obviously defined obviously their day-to-day lives as well. So we recognise the power of bringing sport to the people, making it accessible, and really enabling people to try everything and anything in a way that is really meaningful to them, regardless of their disability as well. And what we endeavour to do with the festival is to connect people with brands, with business and community. So creating an environment where there's no barriers, it's fully accessible, and really limitless in terms of what people can try for the very first time. Next slide, please, Kathy. But in terms of our first aim that I touched on, in terms of which was challenging people to get active, our challenge events play a really, really important role in this. And when we were thinking about creating a format for Parallel, we had breaking barriers very much in mind. So the first thing that we were absolutely clear in is that Parallel is for everybody, and whilst we design the event for disability and disability lifestyle, you don't have to have a disability to come and take part and enjoy the day. And it was really important to us that everybody, regardless of age or ability, could start the challenge events at the same time and participate in the same event, rather than being particularly siloed. So basically, roll, run or walk, you can do it in your own time. There's no cut-off times at all. Insights told us it's incredibly frustrating, and obviously can take a huge amount of effort, particularly if you have a disability, to achieve something. So time is really important, and also to create a whole range of accessible distances that felt achievable and felt attainable for everybody, again, regardless of age or ability. So we basically created our roster of challenge events, ranging from 100 meters, a 1K, a 5K, and a 10K. We also recognise that dance is a really important medium, and a really important sport or social pastime. So we integrated a mass participation dance. And we also created something that's unique to us, something called our Super Sensory 1K, which is very much designed for neurodiversity. I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in more detail. The reason we have a range of distances is that there is a distance for everybody, and and perhaps many of you might look at that 100 meters particularly, but actually for many that 100 meters is just as challenging as a marathon to others. And I think certainly last year we had a delightful little girl called Ada, and it took her almost an hour to complete the 100 meters due to her disability. So it was an incredible moment, an incredible achievement, but most importantly, we were able to create a distance and to create a challenge event that felt achievable and attainable for even some of the most disabled and people who come to our event as well. And that's something that we really want to strive to do and continue to innovate and create these types of challenges that can really engage and start to get people more and more active and bring people together. And so, but importantly as well, we very much see ourselves as a mass participation with a difference. And our motto and our mantra, next slide please, Kathy, is start together, finish whenever. So often you might see in challenge events, you might see finisher t-shirts. For us, we're really not that bothered about the finishing. It's all about the starting. We just want to encourage and remove as many barriers as possible for people to have a go. I think we all recognise, we will all, find 100 reasons why we can't do something. But if we can remove barriers, make everything as easy as possible, and with the least amount of complexity, we can really start to get people up and a little bit more active. So starting is really important together. And again, Kathy mentioned systems change as well. We do lots as well beyond the event to try and encourage this as well, which relates to accessible transport. working really hard with local transport providers and national transport providers, you know, to try and make it as easy as possible for people to come to us and get to the event in a timely, safe, and of course accessible fashion as well. Next slide, please, Kathy. I mentioned our mass participation dance. This was a new innovation for us for last year. It's something that I was really keen to do and bring people together through dance. The way we did this, which was super successful, we partnered with an organisation called Paradance, but there are many fantastic adaptive dance or inclusive dance companies up and down the country. And then together with Paradance, we selected a track, Dance the Night by Dua Lipa was our choice. And then with Selena, who's one of the instructors, she helped us create an accessible routine, whether you're a wheelchair user or have a learning disability or any other disability. And then we created a series of bite-sized films that we basically sent out to all of our festival goers leading up to the event, and that was over a period of about 6 weeks, so you could actually have a little bit of fun at home. You know, we've heard mention of being able to do things at home, learn the moves, you know, get involved. It's really engaging, and then at the end we created the whole film, you know, with all of the dance routine. Of course, it doesn't actually matter if you don't know the routines on the day. You can just rock up and show your best moves, but the most important thing was to try and get everybody engaged, have fun, getting active, and you know, bringing some movement to life through the joy of dance as well. So mass participation dance was really successful for us, and something that we will be certainly growing for this year's event. Next slide, please, Kathy. And then the other one, which I mentioned earlier, was our Super Sensory 1K. I'm a great advocate, a great believer that actually we should start to think of sport in a different way, particularly if we're all very much focused on engaging disabled communities and other communities as well, who find perhaps physical activity a lot harder, or perhaps engage with their environment in a very different way. And particularly with neurodivergent communities, I always refer to them as sensory athletes. So they're athletes in their own way, but perhaps they're basically exercising their minds and their senses rather than perhaps, traditionally you think of physical exercise, exercising your body. So we wanted to create an activity that combined a little bit of physical activity, whether you could walk or run or roll, but really engaging the senses in a really meaningful way, whether that is with touch or with smell or with hearing or otherwise. So you can just see on this little schematic here, we created a number of different activities on the Super Sensory, to do with texture. I'll just pull out there an example, one of our charity partners challenges. It really simple. Their brand colours are orange, so they had an orange and spoon race. It wasn't really a race, but you could take an orange and a spoon, balance it. But the beauty of that is that you could touch the orange, you could smell the orange, and then of course at the end, if you chose to, you could eat the orange as well. So, a really simple, lo-fi, low-cost way of, combining sensory activity with a little bit of physical movement in a really simple yet creative and innovative way. And that's really what the Super Sensory is all about, is combining, sensory activity with a little bit of movement, to engage a whole set of people who respond to their environments in a very different way. And I should say as well that the Super Sensory is now our most popular challenge event, and the beauty of this as well is that many families can take part in this together, and again, that's something that's really important to us in terms of creating activities that everybody can take part on regardless of ability. So that's our Super Sensory. And then the next slide, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind, just here's the day just brought to life.
is a national celebration of disability lifestyle. Everybody can come together and be themselves in the glorious setting of the Windsor Great Park.
Each year it feels like it's getting bigger and bigger, and it's just wonderful events to be part of.
We have a range of different challenge events, so that's lots of different distances for all ages, health conditions and abilities.
It's basically showing the wider community that anybody can take part.
It feels like a big family for me, my mum. I want to give an awesome performance for people who know who I am.
The Super Sensory is a race for our sensory athletes, and every 100 metres of this course you will have something either to look at, something to smell, something to touch.
The Super Sensory is probably one of the best things ever for people like myself.
And then we have our Festival of Inclusivity, which is bursted with all sorts of accessible activities and experiences.
There's so many different things for different people here, and I think that's what is so wonderful. There are many spaces for the disabled community to come together.
Many of our partners use our event to bring all of their communities together, and it really does add to the colour, the magic and the whole spirit of joy.
We're all about making sure that disabled and non-disabled people come together and do stuff together, and that's the point of Parallel.
The whole team puts so much work into making sure that something is accessible. Everybody can have a fantastic time and deserves to have a really great day out, be involved in challenges and get medals and feel challenged.
I'm really grateful to a number of our sponsors this year. Sure, our headline sponsor, and Amazon MGM Studios and the Co-op, all of them have been absolutely amazing.
We have such an incredible partnership with Parallel. We love everything that they do and all the support that they give to the community.
Everyone wants to take part in life. So what any disabled person asks, can I be part of what's going on?
And what this place does is it removes all the barriers. People can definitely feel that they belong.
It's such a joyous occasion. It brings out the best of human nature. What it means to people to be included and to have an event that they can enjoy.
Okay, so that was last year, the joy of Parallel Windsor, and then finally, what I would just like to just leave on is just how we can take some of our work and some of our insights that we find at Parallel Windsor, and how we can kind of take things that we see that is working, and how we can maybe possibly utilize that as pilots, or as a little bit of thought leadership or a little bit of thought starters in terms of how we can also start to break a few barriers and try and encourage people, practitioners, organisers of sporting events or other events, to start thinking about things in a slightly different way. And this final example I'd like to share with you is something that we did a little while ago with the Children's Trust. They're a wonderful charity that specialise in looking after young people with acquired brain injury. But obviously the concept that we piloted with them is very much designed as well for to work with neurodiversity as well. And what we started to think about was really thinking about traditional sports days, and how we could perhaps think about them in a slightly different way, making them a little bit more inclusive, being a little bit more thoughtful and a little bit more innovative and creative in terms of what activities that we can create, and how we could then start to integrate play and also music into sporting activity. I think certainly in the elite world, we see music playing more and more of an important part in major sporting activities and events. So why can't we think of music and integrate music in a more engaging way, to go shoulder and shoulder in sport in terms of the activities that we do as well. So here's the Parallel Sports Day, a little film here which I'd love to share with you, and hopefully there was some nice answers here, but the one thing to take out here, which I think Chloe touched on as well in her presentation, is really what this is all about, is making sure that hopefully everybody has good access to sport, but most importantly, in a way that's meaningful and really engaging. Thank you, Kathy. Okay, are we stuck there, Kathy? I think a little. Oh, okay. I think hopefully, Kathy, I think yeah, if we just just move on, hopefully there's enough there that everybody's got a flavour and a feel for what the sports day was.
is that we've been able to use huge creativity, innovative ideas for the children to actually have fun, do what children do, but actually in the surroundings that are important to their rehabilitation.
Okay, we got there. Thank you.
Apologies. Yeah, I've just seen all the messages. I don't think people could hear the sound. Is that right? I'm really sorry about that. I was struggling to unmute, and every time I tried, it was coming off the screen. So we will share that video with the sound. So apologies for the not being able to hear it.
Okay, well, hopefully everybody got a good flavour of the day, and you know, hopefully what came across was, you know, some nice creative ideas and innovation, and starting to rethink about what sport might look like and feel like, and how you might engage with some activities. So thank you very much, and yeah, that's everything from me.
Thank you so much, Andrew. That was fantastic. And I've got to say, you know, if you haven't been involved in Parallel Windsor before, then I highly encourage you to. I volunteered for the last couple of years, got my kids involved last year. So whether you take part as a volunteer or can come along to being part of the event, I would highly recommend it. It's a fantastic day out. I'm going to give everyone just a 5-minute comfort break now. So to have a stretch, grab a cuppa, and I will see people back at 10:29, if that's okay. So if everyone wants to just have a short break, and then we will be joining Jeanette after the break. Thank you. Welcome back. Hopefully people are back at their screens because I can't actually see anyone with my slides. James, are you back?
I am, Kathy. Just waiting for a few more faces to be seen on the screen. We're all sort of, people are gradually coming back now. So
thank you, brilliant.
I think you're okay to get started, Kathy.
Okay, fantastic. Thanks, James. So welcome back. We're now moving on to our very special guest, Jeanette Chippington, OBE. Thank you, Jeanette, for joining us today. I really appreciate your time. Andrew Douglas is actually going to do a kind of Q&A or more of a kind of chat with Jeanette now. So I will hand you over shortly. If there's any time at the end, which there should be, we can hold some space for questions for Jeanette. So thank you, Jeanette, for coming, and over to you, Andrew, to kick this off.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much, Kathy. And well, it's my great pleasure to have the opportunity to chat to Jeanette over the next I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes or so. And as Kathy highlighted in the introductions, you probably see, it's amazing to have Jeanette, one of our most successful Paralympians ever, resident in Maidenhead, and recognised in the honours list. More of this, we'll find out more. But Jeanette, welcome to this morning's webinar. It's lovely to see you. And I just wondered if you could perhaps just start us off with telling us about how you first got involved in sport.
Yeah, well, firstly, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. So how I first sort of, became sort of involved in sport, and especially sort of disability sport. When I was just 12 years old, I walked to school one morning. I was perfectly fine. Wasn't ill or anything. Got to my science lesson and literally just had really bad pins and needles in my legs. I went to stand up and I couldn't, and I was just completely paralysed from the waist down. I was taken to hospital, and then from there I spent sort of, 3, nearly 4 months in hospital. And eventually I was diagnosed with transverse myelitis. But the sort of really the main thing, there was no sort of cure for it, but one of the most important things was rehab and having physiotherapy. And, to start off with, one of the big things was just, being able to use the wheelchair. But I was very fortunate that one of my physiotherapists, she was heavily involved in disabled sport, and she I say suggested, more she sort of shouted and nagged me that I should go along to Sportsable, which was our local disabled sports club. And at the time, I can remember thinking, oh God, that's the worst place I'd ever want to go. It's going to be full of old people in wheelchairs and maybe dribbling and all sorts. I couldn't think of anything worse. And, my parents thought, wow, that's what a great idea. So I kind of went along, and, I was very fortunate. It couldn't have been any further from what I was expecting. And it was, full of people, all sorts of different ages, all different sorts of disabilities. And, the one thing that we all had in common is that we wanted to do sport. And so, I was very lucky that they had lots of helpers there, and they then got me involved in sport.
Wow, that's what an amazing story, Jeanette, and always good to have that nagging voice from time to time, and thank goodness that person was so persistent. But just think about, so you were Sportsable, getting involved in sport and parasport. But then how did you come to then sort of gravitate or choose your discipline, your sport, and how did this then evolve into a more of an elite pathway for you?
Well, I was very lucky down at Sportsable, which was based in Maidenhead. There was various sports that we were able to try, and there was archery, there was sort of table tennis, but archery didn't appeal to. I did have a go at it. It didn't appeal to me quite so much because it was outside in the cold. But the swimming, that seemed like a really good idea. And however, I couldn't swim at all. And it was back in the day where, well, my mum and dad wouldn't let me go down the leisure centre because I couldn't swim. So a bit of a vicious circle. But I was really lucky because they had one-to-one helpers there. So I used to go down to the Magnet Leisure Centre, which it was that back in the day then, and on a Sunday night. And you know, they had, say, one-to-one helpers. You know, so for me it was really difficult because I had to put my trust in those helpers because I couldn't put my feet down to, and I basically couldn't swim. I had to build up the strength in my arms. But you know, I went every week. I got better. We had coaches there, so once I was able to swim, they started coaching me, and then from there, I was sort of advised to join a swimming club. And you know, I was again extremely lucky that Wickham District Swimming Club, you know, and I'm talking sort of nearly 40 years ago, there was about 3 or 4 of us with disabilities, and they gave us our own lane, and we were coached by the coach, and you know, I look back and it's like, you know, it's just pretty amazing because if anyone will tell you, swimming club and lane time is just so precious, but they you know, they could see that opportunity in us. And but yeah, so from there I was going every single morning just before school, going training, and I got better. I then entered sort of local swimming galas, and from there, where I started winning stuff, I then went on to was selected for the Great Britain team, and then the rest is history, really.
It certainly is, and what a history that is. And it just goes to show, doesn't it? You know, even then, you know, just what a little bit of thoughtfulness and innovation can do, and what that can create. And you know, with your swimming club, and you know, that led to a hugely successful time for you as a Paralympic swimmer. That spanned 5 consecutive Paralympic Games. So that's from Seoul 1988 to Athens 2004. Resulting in 13 medals. 2 of those were golds in Atlanta. But then obviously for good reasons, you decided to take a little bit of a break. But then Rio, fast forward, Rio 2016, you were back representing Paralympics GB and winning another gold medal, but this time not as a swimmer, but as a para-canoeist, which was quite extraordinary. Can you tell us a little bit about this incredible transition of sports and how that happened?
Well, so after Athens, I retired from competitive swimming, but I still I love the sport, and I wanted to sort of give something back to the sport. So I became a swimming teacher and swimming coach, and I was teaching down at Maidenhead. And it was one of my adult sessions. One of my swimmers, she was kayaking down at Longridge, and so a little bit like the physio, a little bit sort of forceful and like, oh, you must come along, you must try kayaking, you'll love it. And I just remember thinking, I can't think of anything worse than going out in the freezing cold, you know, potential of capsizing. And I thought, oh God, anyway, she's quite persistent. So I thought, well, I know, I'll go along, and then I can just say, yeah, right, I gave it a try, and you know, I didn't really, you know, it's not for me. So, you know, I went along, and again, I was very lucky that there was sort of volunteer there who was sort of with me, you know, sort of one-to-one. You know, he got me in the boat, and it was just amazing. And you know, from there I went sort of quite a few times, and it was just to start off with, it was just incredible that that feeling of freedom and that I got from being in the boat. I was able to access other parts of the countryside that, you know, just aren't possible in your wheelchair. And before I knew it, there was actually a sort of open day, because Paracanoe made its debut in Rio, so they were looking sort of for new athletes, and I thought, well, I'll go along, I'll give it a try, but by then, you know, I was kind of thinking, oh, you know, I don't want to do elite sport again, because it just completely takes over your life. Anyway, they were quite keen to sort of have me on board, and they allocated a coach, and then, you know, before I know it, that competitive element, that edge came out again, and I was training sort of every day, twice a day. So I've got my that swimmer to thank a lot for that.
Unbelievable. It just seems as well, Jenna, it seems that forceful, you know, bossy coaches seem to be a theme, you know, throughout your sporting career. But I think it's quite extraordinary, you know, in both of your disciplines, you know, from going from not being able to swim to becoming, you know, Paralympic champion, and not being able to, you know, never paracanoed or canoe before again, coming to be a champion. I mean, quite extraordinary. You know, obviously your modesty belies, but there's clearly some incredible talent there as well. Just quite amazing. So from paracanoeing, you know, you went on, obviously, where you made your debut in Rio, and then onto Tokyo, and then more recently, you competed in Paris, just last year, Paris 2024. But this time, what I thought was quite really interesting, is that you also received, not just for your you know, sporting abilities, but you received a fair amount of coverage, being the oldest member of the Paralympics GB team, and I particularly, you know, you got a lot of press around that, and I particularly loved one of your quotes where you said, "We're all equal on the start line." You clearly don't see age as a barrier. You know, I just wondered, you know, sort of your thoughts on, you know, on age, and, you know, that coverage you received, and you know, your thoughts on that would be amazing.
Well, actually, when we went to Tokyo, I was also the oldest on the team, but maybe wasn't so much coverage. And I have to admit, I was kind of really embarrassed, and it was like, oh, all the things I have to pick up on is my age, so yeah, I was I suppose ashamed to say I was a bit embarrassed. However, you know, if I had have sort of worried about my age, you know, I would never have gone on to then compete in Tokyo. And I won my bronze medal. And then later I was then awarded the OBE for my services to sport. So it's like, you know, so I'm obviously so pleased I did do that. Moving on to Paris, again, you know, as I say, as you said, they did make it a big deal that I was the oldest on the team. And by then, I was like, well, actually, you know, this is something I should be really proud of, and
Yeah.
you know, proud of myself, which I was. And, you know, but I suppose because now I'm sort of slightly older, you know, it's probably now one of the sort of biggest sort of barriers that I'm sort of finding is, and you know, and it's like people will say, oh, how old are the others? Are they a lot younger? And it's like, well, what difference does that make? Because, you know, as you said, I don't get a head start. It would be really nice if I did, but I don't. You know, I have to put, you know, all of that work in. Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you know, you just have to sort of be yourself. But I think we all face sort of barriers in life, be it disability, be it age, be it, you know, sort of female. And but it is, you know, it's tough. I mean, I've just recently been taken off the squad, and one of the reasons they said was there was no trajectory. And however, I came fourth in Paris. There's others that didn't even make it to the games and have been on the team just as long as I have. And I obviously appealed that. And you're not telling me that wasn't one of the factors was age. However, they couldn't say that. But unfortunately, it was something that that's one of those sort of battles that I didn't win.
No, and I think, well, all the loss really for the team, because certainly as well as you can see from me, I'm also age for me is becoming certainly more prominent in terms of my daily life as well. And you're right, there are additional barriers. But personally, I just thought, I thought you as a standard bearer in Paralympics, for somebody that was older, competing at that same elite level was actually a really positive message, because I think also sport, doesn't it, plays a really important role, as we age, in terms of, whether it's at an elite level or otherwise, just to try and, not just keep us healthy and conditioned, but obviously, maintain our social networks as well. So, it's
100%.
great. Yeah, and I saw that as a real positive, what you were doing. And it's great that you kind of, sort of from Tokyo, saw that as slightly embarrassing to something that you could perhaps embrace and champion, I think. And all power to you, Jeanette. All power to you. I thought that was just a phenomenal thing you did. One of many things that you've done throughout your career. Really bold. We talked about age, becoming, as you sort of advance in years, as I say, as perhaps, experiencing this as a new barrier, how people perceive you, and wrongly in many respects in terms of age. But also as an athlete with a disability, I'm sure you faced other barriers as well. Would you perhaps just perhaps share one or two, and importantly how you overcome these barriers?
I think one of the main things is people sort of underestimating what you can do, and it was interesting watching the Chloe's video, and it's like, oh gosh, yeah, so much of that sort of resonated with myself, and I don't think it doesn't matter sort of what level you're participating in sport, where yes, I was at elite level, but I had a new strength and conditioning coach, and it wasn't until sort of actually it was when we'd done the handover. And apparently he was like, oh gosh, I've never worked with somebody with a disability before, and these are, again, they are elite coaches. They're the sort of highest you can get. And he was saying, I don't know what to do. So the other coach said, well, just speak to Jeanette, just ask her, what help she needs. And so it was like, yeah, it's quite an obvious one, really. So that's sort of a main thing. I mean, access is always an issue. Again, I'm very fortunate that I train, my sort of swimming is down at Braywick Leisure Centre, and so it's a new leisure centre. And again, with that communication, I know when it was in the sort of planning stage, they'd contacted our local sort of disabled swimming group, and the facilities there are fantastic, from the changing rooms, and parking. There is so much disabled parking, it's great. And actually I turned up the other day and pretty much most of it was full, and yet there is so much disabled parking. But also the sport itself, there can be barriers for disabled people. So for example, myself, so one of the reasons I always kind of go back to my swimming is because I can turn up, I can get in the pool, I don't need any help. But whereas with my kayaking, I just physically cannot do that on my own because I can't carry the boat there. And also another thing that once happened to me was when I was training to do my course for my swimming teaching, to become a swimming teacher. And it was quite embarrassing actually, because the assessor sort of walked in and she kind of looked at me, sort of, you could see like horrified that I was in a wheelchair. And she said to me, well, I don't know how you're going to be able to do the demonstrations. And I was like, well, I'll just use my arms, you know. And it's like, well, how else do like most of the swimming teachers, you know, they all have to say maybe stand on one leg. But, you know, I mean, by the end of the course, her attitude definitely changed. But yeah, so those are just some of the barriers.
Yeah, no, and I guess at the moment, in terms of your your sporting career to date, Jeanette, is there one particular memorable moment or proud moment from all of those games or world champs or anything that really stands out for you in terms of the memory?
Yeah, I mean, well, that's an easy one. So in 2016 was the Rio Paralympic Games, and the kayaking, well, para-canoe was making its debut. So up until then, so I'd started in 2012. I was world champion, European champion. So every year I was winning, become world champion. When it's Paralympic year for us for para-canoe, our world championships are 6 months before the games, and so I arrived there, and I must admit, I was just so nervous. We had a world championships, and I was beaten, so I got the silver medal. My world championship title had gone. So then fast forward 6 months later, going on to Rio. And, I'm thinking, God, this, am I going to be able to get a medal here? And, and I knew the gold was possible. And my German competitor that had beaten me at the Worlds, I remember we were warming up and, on the lake, and it was just incredible. I mean, it was beautiful. It's a sunny day. We had the mountains in the background. Christ the Redeemer was looking down on us. There was literally just fish were jumping out of the water, and I had this sort of moment of calmness, and I was warming up, and I passed my German competitor, and I remember looking at her and thinking, okay, she's not gone faster than me. She had beaten me, but she hadn't done a faster time. She looked no stronger than me, and it was like, I can do this. I've just got to stay calm. Whereas 6 months earlier, I'd let the nerves just get to me. So it's like, got to stay calm. We got into that start bucket. I knew one of my sort of weaker points was my start. So I knew I just had to get the best start ever. Literally, the buckets dropped, flew out of the bucket, and it's a 200-meter sprint. And in the video you can see, I got that amazing start. And my coach would always say to me, it's all those little inches that make a difference. So when we were coming into the last sort of 20 meters of the race, all I could think about was just try and get that extra inch, that extra like centimeter, just trying to get that catch across the start, the finish line. And literally, I didn't know if I'd won the gold or the silver. And my German competitor, she literally.
Oh, Jeanette, sorry, Jeanette, I think you might be on mute. You've just gone to mute.
Oh, yeah. So that was because somebody was calling.
Just at the crucial moment. Yeah, good.
Yeah. So I'll rewind. So literally, yeah, my coach was saying, you know, every sort of little inch would make a difference. So it was that last 20 meters of the race, and I couldn't have reached any more. And we crossed the finish line, and I wasn't sure if I'd got that silver or the gold. My German competitor literally screamed, threw her arms in the air, and I'm thinking, okay, she's got the gold. And you know, I literally turned around and I could see the scoreboard, and it had like number 1 and GBR, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, and it was like, what does that mean? Got to like the pontoon, and I was like, well, where did I come? And they were like, you've got the gold, and I was like, really? And I'm thinking, I am not going to believe this until I'm on that podium. And it was incredible to be on that podium in Brazil. And my children were there, my parents were there, and getting that gold medal was just absolutely incredible. Best moment, one of the best moments of my, well, it was the best moment of my sporting career.
Yeah. Unbelievable. Wow. Well, thank you. I can just picture everything described, and that calmness and leading into that moment. I mean, what a moment. Quite incredible. So just going back a little bit, you know, when you described, you know, in those early years, you know, when you know you were just starting out, you know, swimming, you couldn't swim at all. You know, is there any, you know, from your own experience, is there any advice you might be able to share or give someone who wants to try a sport, you know, whether it's swimming or otherwise, but try a sport that maybe feels a little bit nervous about starting, you know, perhaps they've never done it before, or you know, or something of that nature? Is there any tips or advice?
Yeah, I would definitely say try and go with a friend. I mean, that's two things. You're with somebody you know. Also, you normally set a time and a date, and it kind of makes you have to go. You know, this is what I would do. I would go to a beginner's class if it was a new thing. Even if I think, oh, I might be fairly good, I'd think, oh, I'm going to go to a beginner's class. Or even like, you know, being a female, maybe try, you know, if you're worried, sort of an all, you know, female sort of group. Definitely choose something that you think you will enjoy. You know, there's no point in thinking, oh, I'll try, I don't know, football, and you think, and you hate football. You know, yeah. Although, you know, it's good to try new things, but you know, if you're nervous, then I would say choose something you enjoy. You've got to be comfortable. So, you know, for example, if you were trying kayaking or an outdoor sport, you know, get some advice on what sort of clothing to wear, because if you know what the weather's like in this country, there's nothing worse if you're then learning a new sport and you're getting wet and freezing cold. So try and get sort of some advice on sort of clothing. And one of the big things that my coach always said was, whatever you do, it's got to be sustainable. So, for example, when I first started sort of para-canoe, my children were still young, and so I'd have to get them to school, and then before training, and then pick them up, make sure my training was finished, to then go and pick them up from school. So if we'd chosen, I don't know, that our sessions always started at 8:30 in the morning, then I might have been able to do it for a few weeks, but that longevity, that long term, it would have always been an obstacle. So like just making it that half an hour later meant I could drop them off at school. You know, it meant that I could then, you know, pick them up after school. But, you know, likewise, if you choose something where a class that, I don't know, after work or something, or, you know, that you're always going to be tired. Yeah, I'd say the main things is try and choose something that you think you're going to enjoy.
Yeah, that's really good advice. And you know, and you know, obviously sport, many people, perhaps many young people with disabilities, think that sport isn't for them. It's do you have a view on that, Jeanette? Do you think that there is a sport for everybody, or how we think about sports and and how the importance, the role it can play?
Always sad that if people sort of are frightened to try sports. For me, it's been a big sort of a social thing. It's something that I will always go back to as well, is my swim. I mean, even when I go swimming just at Bray Leisure Centre, we're all creatures of habit, and there's the same people that I see at the same time. We don't know, but we sort of kind of do know each other, just because we see each other all at the same time. But I just recently tried wheelchair dancing and wheelchair rugby. So there's so many sort of different things that you can try, and they, I mean, at that elite level, is just a small minority of people that go on to sort of that pathway, and most of us, just want to sort of do it for fun and for fitness.
No, absolutely. And I think what you've just kind of, I think it's really important as well, that there's such a small number of people that do follow that elite pathway. And perhaps as well, that you've just touched on, many people with disability perhaps don't want to join a team. They're perhaps not so interested in the competition side. Are there any things that you do, or could suggest, ways in which people who don't necessarily want to join a team or go on a elite pathway, but maybe can build a little bit of activity or physical activity into their daily routines?
Well, I mean, myself, I've sort of tried doing some yoga, which I just YouTubed some, because I mean, for me, yoga is like, most of it I can't do, but there is some bits. So I must admit, I was thinking, well, there's no point in me joining a yoga class, because probably 3/4 of it I won't be able to do. But just went on YouTube and just found just some classes and just adapted them myself. But I do sort of keep going back to this. But if you can join sort of local clubs, there's that social aspect. It makes you go out, because you've got to be there at a certain time. And I think a great place to start is your sort of local leisure centres. That there's so many activities that are going on. So to sort of just try them.
No, I think that's great, great advice, Jeanette. And I imagine as well, there's an important role for local communities and and organisations like our kind host today, Get Berkshire Active, can play in in helping to make sport more accessible as well.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I know, keep going on, but our local leisure centre, Braywick, they're fantastic. I know they're hosting 7 days of sort of inclusivity sport. That's coming up soon. But I think one of the things is that with sort of disabled sport, we do rely heavily on volunteers, and all through my sort of sporting career, there's always been volunteers, and even now where I'm doing my wheelchair rugby, we rely on volunteers so much, and they're sort of under recognised, and so it's we need to do more, sort of recognising them.
No, I completely agree, and it was just interesting as well. I just remember, when you shared the story, when you in terms of the paracanoeing, the importance of volunteering as well, and yeah, you're so right in that regard, Jeanette, for sure. So just perhaps, if I may, just a couple of, perhaps final questions, Jeanette. I guess, perhaps looking back and looking forward. So, just over your career to date, have you seen any positive changes in how inclusive sport and physical activity has become over the years? And, what still needs to be done?
I think social media has played a huge part, in that sort of, positively. I know when I first started competing at the Paralympics, I used to have to explain to people, it's like, well, it's the same as the Olympics, but it's for people with disabilities. And now, I'd like to think most people know what the Paralympics are. You now have disabled people now, they're household names, they're role models, and just, access has improved hugely. I know that the film that Chloe was saying, even for me, if I was to go and get the sort of the train, I always have to think, can I park there? Will there be parking? Will the lifts be working? Will there be somebody that can help me onto the train? And these are like just because you want to travel somewhere, and they're huge barriers. But I have seen huge changes. There's still lots to be done, and I think one of the big things is that organisations need to do is not just tick a box and think, right, okay, we've got those facilities, or we've got this. They've really got to sort of engage with people and make sure that those facilities are all up to date, and are still accessible to everyone. And I think also, again, it's knowledge. And even myself, I think, oh gosh, what's the right terminology now you should use for like people with disabilities? Or I recently went to a festival, and it was amazing, the sort of access and things like that. But for example, you could have an access pass to use a disabled toilet. And the queue was huge, and most people were say standing, and and I'm sort of in my wheelchair, and I'm thinking, well, why do they need a bigger accessible toilet? Now, I like to think there was a reason, but even I'm thinking, why? And so it's that knowledge and, I suppose, ignorance, and I think the more that people sort of know about disabilities, then the more understanding we can be.
Absolutely right. I think that's that whole notion of lived experience and knowledge, is so right, Jeanette. I guess my final question to you is, you're on an incredible journey. You've established yourself as one of Britain's most successful Paralympians ever, spanning 8 games, 1988 to 2024. Quite incredible. Awarded an MBE 2017, and then in the New Year's Honours List, and then an OBE in the 2022 New Year's Honours List. My goodness, what next? What next? And are there any exciting projects you can share with us?
Ultimately, gosh, I'd love to go on to do a 9th games, but I don't think that. Well, we'll yeah, I always say no, never. But just recently, I've been doing my wheelchair rugby, and that's something I could never do when I was competing, because that fear of getting injured, and it is pretty brutal, the wheelchair rugby. But I'm just really enjoying that new challenge. They're a great bunch, but going sort of that, it doesn't have to be at elite level. And actually, I wouldn't be able to compete in the wheelchair rugby at elite level, at the Paralympics, because you have to have a disability in 3 limbs or more. So that kind of that stops me taking it much further. But just enjoying learning a new sport and, like, you know, learning the new rules. And yeah, it's great. I do come back battered and bruised though, and I think, God, I'm pretty fit. I'm still doing my kayaking, I'm still doing my swimming, and still doing gym. And I come away from those sessions, I mean, absolutely, it's brutal. I'm exhausted. But yeah, and I've really enjoyed today, being able to sort of, talk today. So hopefully that's something more, I might be able to do more of as well.
Well, thanks, Jeanette. Well, I hope everybody will agree with me. You are an absolute champion in and out of the water, in everything you do. And it's just been an absolute pleasure to chat to you for the last 40 minutes or so, and wish you all the very best as you continue that journey. And I wouldn't doubt that you might make an appearance for the women's rugby team at some point. Hopefully they'll relax the rules a little bit, but I wouldn't bet against it. Thanks so much, Jeanette, and Kathy, back over to you.
Yeah, thank you. Just to echo Andrew's comments, thank you so much, Jeanette. I had various goosebump moments then when you were sharing your story. So thank you. And we must share that video of you and Rio. I saw on the chat, Mike's already going to be having a look at YouTube at lunchtime, he said, to make sure he can watch that. So I will make sure we share that with everyone. So thank you so much. Thank you for your time, Jeanette. I hope it hasn't affected any of your training today, but really appreciate you sharing and being so kind of open and honest. Thank you. There is time for a couple of questions if there is anyone that would like to ask anything. James, are you happy to kind of coordinate that if anyone's got their hands up?
Yeah, we'll do, Kathy. Yeah, Rebecca, do you want to go first?
Hi there. Sorry, I'm a little bit, I just want to say to everyone, it's been amazing. Thank you for inviting me. I'm a little bit new because my role I've always done at work, and I've started to get confident and branch out into my own personal time and be actively participating and championing sport for all individuals that face barriers. So if there's anybody that feels that they could support me in any way and to just maybe have a chat with me so that I could maybe develop this better, because as I put in the thing, I've got quite a lot of organisations I'm involved with, but also for my work wise, I would be really grateful. Just so that I can be better and be more inclusive and promote us all and collaborate, I think is a really great opportunity. So yes, that's all I really wanted to say.
No, that's great. Thank you. And that's what I'm hoping these kind of webinars, do bring people together. I've seen there's a few people kind of on the chat trying to connect. So no, thank you for sharing that. And obviously the Activity Alliance has some fantastic resources and tools that can hopefully help you in that space. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
Ella, do you want to go next?
Yes, thank you. I've got a question for Jeanette around potentially mentoring. So I just want to know if you've ever been involved in mentoring anyone, whether that's an athlete coming through, through the Canoe program, or whether you've been sort of linked to other para athletes or just young athletes with a disability to kind of help them on their kind of sporting journey.
Yeah, that's a wonderful question. Actually, with swimming, when we had new swimmers come in, they did have sort of that mentoring program, although we were actually still on the team, but they would sort of kind of pair us up with somebody. Now, yeah, unfortunately, Paracanoe, it isn't doing that, and I think they are missing a huge, trick there, really, because we're retired athletes, so you have so much knowledge and advice to be able to give. So and we've also seen it on the Olympic side as well, that they're sort of they're not tending to do that. But yeah, I mean, it would be I'd be more than happy to do that.
Yeah, I just think, you know, with everything that you've done and been through as well, you know, to be able to pass that on and not let it just sort of disappear into like the ether, basically, would be amazing, you know, because, you know, clearly there is a lot that you've done and gone through. So so much to offer, really. But yeah, I hope you get the opportunity.
Thank you. Well, it's interesting because we had with my, you know, rugby, we had a tournament, and there's another guy that's new, and he was asking the coach, he was saying, oh, what should I eat? What should I do? And when we got there, you know, a lot of the ones on our team were like eating crisps, and there I was with all my sort of protein and salad and that, and they were like, oh, look at you being healthy. And I was thinking, but that's all the stuff that I know. And you think, oh yeah, you forget that sort of club level, that people haven't had that access to that kind of, you know, information.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just like the little things like that at that level, and it would just, I think people do want to know, but it's hard to find the information. So yeah, thanks for that.
Oh, you're welcome.
Anyone else, or shall we move on?
Just the observation in the chat, I think other people sort of mentioning how inspiring the talk was and how they're going to use it with people within their club. So, you know, that's really, really great to hear. And also great to also for me to emphasize how it feels like people are going to be able to support each other with their experiences and things that have happened with participants. So no, it's great for everyone to be collaborating together, really.
Thanks, James. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to whiz through just a few Get Berkshire Active updates. I might skip a couple of slides because I know we haven't got too long. I wanted to make sure we had space for the presenters. But just one thing that might be useful, relevant to this group, we have a workforce development grant available. And this is essentially for bursaries towards things like courses or qualifications that essentially support more people to be active. We want to focus on ensuring those bursaries go towards kind of inclusive opportunities. So if you live or deliver in Berkshire, you're able to access this bursary up to £300 per application. So please do get in touch if you want to find out more. That's Bukimi from our team who coordinates that, and his details will be shared. I'll really quickly whiz through this. There's an opportunity. We essentially run a program called Active Medicine, and this features training opportunities and resources for anyone working with Berkshire residents that might want to increase skills, knowledge and confidence around having conversations in physical activity, and then our helping. So the helping people be more active is essentially kind of a 1 hour online introduction to physical activity, and it's similar skills to those seen in Making Every Contact Count training. There's opportunities to look at the local signposting side of things at the end, and that's usually delivered online. And then Change Talk training, that's 5 modules. That's a bit more in depth. It goes into things like theories of change, motivational interviewing techniques, and that can be delivered across 1 day or 2 half days. So we have received funding from Health Education England to support the delivery of this training. So if any of you are interested to find out more, please get in touch. Some of you may be aware of the We Are Undefeatable campaign, which is essentially focused on individuals with long-term health conditions. This is led by the Richmond Group of Charities, and I will again share some links to different resources. There's a mix of digital and printable, which we'll share after this webinar. This is just a slide with some signposting opportunities. These are just a few. I know there's some amazing organisations out there supporting disabled people with sport and physical activity opportunities. So I'm sure you're aware of all of these, but again, these will be shared. Just some dates for the diary. If anyone's interested in kind of women and girls work, we run a women's wellness series, and we have our next event on the 14th of May, which explores the experiences of Black women and girls in sport and physical activity. We've got some fantastic presenters coming along to that. We also run work in the maternity space, and we have a Berkshire Physical Activity and Maternity Network. a mental health forum coming up on the 12th of May, and then we have a national governing body forum. I know we have a few NGBs here today that may have signed up to that. Just an opportunity. I know a few partners put within their registration form they wanted to share some opportunities. So if you are still around and want to jump off mute, or we can share things in follow-up resources. But Steph, did you want to say anything about your Festival of Inclusivity? Sure, Steph's still here. Or anyone else? Pat, Rebecca, Mike, or Ella? I think Mike. Is Mike still around?
I'm here, if you don't mind me talking.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Jump in. Thank you.
Sorry.
No,
yeah, so we've got currently we've got a few kind of events and things coming up. The biggest of which is one of our flagship events, the National Junior Games, which is in June, 24th, 25th, and 26th of June. So that's where people, young people, 11 to 18 with a physical disability can come and try about 20 different sports over a period of those days. The event is on our website. We've also currently still got spaces on our Junior Learn to Ski event, which is in May. It's very soon. And we have multiple Learn to Play Golf events planned for the remainder of the year in conjunction with the Golf Trust. So yeah, just some events and things to look out for. I already mentioned as well, when Jeanette was talking about yoga, we've got an online yoga class that runs every week, extremely popular, and other online classes also for anyone who has a physical disability that would like to take part. I also just wanted to quickly say, Andrew from Parallel, and to everyone in this room, that Parallel Windsor is a fantastic event, and I urge you to go.
Thank you, Ella.
Yes,
That was great.
thank
Thanks
you,
so
Ella.
much. Thank you. Anyone else? If you'd like to share any opportunities as part of the follow-up, please do email me, and I'm happy to make sure that's included as well.
I can share. As I said, I'm still quite new to this, so I'm getting my grips to what I need to be doing. But I can say from McIntyre, we're starting to branch into Berkshire. So again, if there's anybody that's got things that they could potentially collaborate with us so that we could develop and progress within the community and activities, particularly around dance, because we have what's called our McIntyre dancers. And that's where we also enable anybody that faces barriers can actually get a qualification into dancing and be able to then, within their area and their community they live, deliver and develop those sessions, so it's more, personal centered and inclusive, as opposed to it being us guys. Obviously there would be a fully qualified coach, but what we do is we very much involve the people and the individuals to also get opportunities and get qualifications. From my own personal side, again, I'm trying to develop a football team over here in Berkshire, as I've done in Buckinghamshire, particularly around SEND adults. So again, if anybody's got connections, and the one that I have started to do connections with is Spice at Slough Synchro, everyone active, and they are a synchronized ice skating, but they also offer all types of ice skating for anybody that wants to participate and get on the ice. It's a fantastic sport. They actually do have 2 teams currently that are competing at the British Championships, and they are actually gold and silver medalist for synchronized ice skating for Great Britain.
Brilliant.
So yeah,
you,
definitely just look on the Everyone Active, and it's called Spice, but I can put the details to whoever, and then you can post that if you want.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for that. We will move on. Just the last couple of bits. If people can get their phones out again, we have one more, just the last Slido question. It's always really useful for us to know. What one thing will you do after today's webinar? It might be simply connecting with the Activity Alliance resources. It might be connecting with a particular organisation you've come across today, or if something's inspired you from any of the talks. So if you want to scan the QR code or put it in the chat if you can't access slido.com, I'd love to hear what people might be taking away. Thank you. Just give 2 minutes for this.
whilst people are doing that, just we've had a few questions around the workforce grants. We'll just make sure that all of the details are in the slides that we send out, or we'll send out a link in the email so that you've got the information about the workforce grants, because I'm guessing people have got a few questions, so we'll make sure that you've got all of that information after today's session.
Thanks, James. Yeah, the date was in there. I think it opens was at the beginning of May. So I know somebody's obviously just had a look and it's saying currently closed, but it will be opening, I think, end of next week, beginning of May. So hopefully, I can see people typing, but I can't see anything that's come up yet. Let me see if it's coming up. Oh, there we go. Sorry. There we go. Brilliant. So connecting with other attendees, sharing reflections and suggestions for projects or collaborations, linking into Parallel, sharing Ella's talk, attending Parallel Windsor, fantastic, newsletter, lots of sharing, raising awareness, promoting. Oh, that's brilliant.
Could I ask Ella to give me a call?
Yes, Alan, I'm sure.
To play golf program?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, do you want to drop your number or drop me an email and with your number? And
I don't know your email address.
Let me put it in the chat for you.
Thank you, brilliant. That's what these webinars are for as well, connecting partners. So, and lots of sharing with Leisure Centre partners. So thank you, everyone. Right, I'd just like to essentially last slide now. So I'd be really grateful. Last QR code to scan. There's literally just, I think, 3 or 4 very short questions. We really would value your feedback. James put a link in for that if people can't access that on their phones. We will send a follow-up, including all the slides and details, and some those delegates that were happy to share their contact details. I'd like to say, again, a huge thank you to our presenters, Jeanette, Chloe and Andrew, for their fantastic talks today and for their time. We really appreciate that. And thank you all for coming along today. So if you're able to use those last few minutes just to complete the few short questions, we'd really value your feedback, and I'd like to wish you all a lovely rest of day. So thank you very much.
Yeah, so following on from Kathy, the feedback forms in the chat for people who can't access the QR code. So we'll be here for the next few minutes.
Thank you.
Adios, amigos.
I'm going now too, but thank you very much. Thank you.
See you later. Bye.
Bye.